Iowa Sports Review is brought to you today by Daniel Marks, licensed sales representative with United Healthcare. Turning 65? Welcome to Medicare. Call Daniel at 515-519-0040, TTY 711.
Fans both here in Kinnick Stadium and from around the world.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. This beautiful Saturday night. My name is Adam Jacobi of the Iowa Sports Review and of GoIowaAwesome.com. I am joined by the legendary Mark Hasty, the picker of the Big Ten for as long as there's been blogs, there's been Mark. So, Mark, great to see you. And everybody in the chat, great to see you too. Great to see you.
Hello, everybody. Great to be here.
And it's great to have a 4-0 team to cheer for because not everybody's got one of those. Iowa has won 24-14 over Colorado State in a game that definitely happened. We can say that for sure. It took place, and it was a win of sorts. Mark, where were you emotionally during the game, especially at, 20 seconds before halftime?
20 seconds before halftime, I was opening up my Hulu app looking to see if I could find a rerun of Bob Ross somewhere. That was really where I was at that point, is thinking that, oh, boy, I can't believe what I'm watching. I can't believe that the team is looking like this at this point of the season against this opponent, and seeing all the adjustments that really needed to be made. It was really quite troubling.
Yeah, it was. It was, especially as you mentioned, in the context of the first three games of the season. I mean, this is still a team that has 2 wins over teams that were ranked at the time. One of whom was a dark horse contender for the championship. That ship has quite clearly sailed by now, but that was a level of wins that Iowa was putting together, and double-digit wins at that. And so, I don't think anybody expected a 14-7 halftime deficit. And it was definitely touch and go there for a little bit. All right, so all of you watching, welcome. So happy to have y'all. And since this is a post-game show, and we're legally not allowed to call it Hawkeye Sound Off, the premise is still more or less the same. So hop on into the comments there, say hello to us, give us your takes, your questions. I'm just going to guess there's going to be a lot of them. And Mark Hasty and I will be more than happy to share them, talk with them, and all of that good stuff. So, our obviously our offense needs to be talked about, but Tim Brando. Oh, Tim. Now, Tim Brando is not the worst commentator I've ever seen or ever heard of. He's pretty well known for doing his homework and this and that. He's been in the business for a long time, but boy, if the game wasn't annoying enough, the announcers didn't do a whole lot to ease our tensions. I mean, when you start off by saying Iowa City's the capital of Iowa, and Only the Good Die Young was written about Niall Kinnick, I mean, that is just a roaring start. And then Charlie Jones turned into San Diego Chargers Hall of Famer Charlie Joyner, which, I mean, I would have guessed he's out of eligibility by now.
Isn't he dead?
But he could be. It wouldn't surprise me. I hope he's not.
I hope not either, but I
yeah.
thought I heard it. Or maybe I'm thinking of Chuck Muncie. I don't know.
Could be. So Charlie Joyner, if you're out there and you're dead, rest in peace. If not, good job, I guess. I don't know. So all of you watching on whatever platform that you're watching on, The best way to get comments to us is in the chat on YouTube. So just head on over to the YouTube link. Should be pretty easy to find. And right there in the other direction, in the comments, or not in the comments, in the chat, there's a different little chat window. Hop on in there. Give us your takes, your thoughts, your everything, because we are here for you. And Zach with an excellent question. Is the O-line a bigger question mark than Petrus? That is plausible to say the least. And, Tyler Linderbaum, obviously, he did have one pretty bad play, but he had plenty of good ones too. But yeah, it sure seemed like Petrus was having guys come at him pretty much unchecked every other time that he was dropping back to pass. And it's not like Colorado State has a world-renowned defensive line or front seven or anything like that. But they were able to figure out how to get rushers free with some real regularity. Tyler Goodson didn't get free very often either. And for all that we say about Petrus's pocket presence, the line certainly wasn't doing him any favors. Honestly, I'm not sure they looked better this week than they did in week one. Mark, do you agree?
No, this was a new grouping that hadn't worked together much before, correct? That there were some people rotated into this line to start that had not necessarily started the first 3 games. I believe that was the case. So
yeah. Keep going.
I guess I would say, yeah, we're not used to seeing an Iowa team where the offensive line is anything less than excellent. And so to see a line struggling, getting pushed around by a Mountain West also ran is not very comforting or comfortable going into next week with the return to Big Ten play. So, yeah. And also I think Petrus, while he has a lot of work to do to learn when to throw the ball away so you don't take a 13-yard loss on a sack all the time, I do also have to say, as I'm trying to talk over your cat, Adam, that I was somewhat impressed by the way he played today. This was the first time he threw a pick all season, and that, of course, is not wonderful, but also the first time he threw a touchdown outside of the second quarter. And in that second half of the game, it sure seemed like there was a nice vertical passing game starting to develop. So, yeah, I would say at this point, maybe the offensive line is a bigger question than Petrus.
Yeah. Sorry for the technical difficulties we got going on back here. There's really only so much that you can say, or only so much you can do to control a cat. We'll put it that way. Wow. I hope that didn't just get us banned from YouTube. But yes, to your point, I think Petrus actually took a few steps forward. And part of that is just because Colorado State's defense, their pass defense, one, they're not terribly talented to begin with, but two, they were pretty clearly selling out to stop short stuff at the expense of deep coverage. When Petrus was able to go long, it was always to one-on-one situations, right? He was never pushing into double coverage. And the reason that it was always one-on-one was because regardless of where CSU was lining these guys up, it's not like they had 10 guys at the line of scrimmage, but they usually had just about everybody bombing toward the line of scrimmage after the snap. And to be able to, manufacture those one-on-one matchups and then make the most of them, that was definitely promising. I still cannot believe what my cat just did. And that fake bubble screen and then throw to Laporta. I mean, if the field were 200 yards long, that still would have been a touchdown. Nobody was near him. And
couldn't have been more.
Yeah. So kudos to Ferentz for at the very least realizing at the halftime break that, they're daring us to throw the ball downfield. why not take the invitation? And Petrus actually does have the arm for it. He doesn't, show it off very much, but especially when he's able to set his feet, look down one receiver, right? Because there's no safety that he has to look off if there's no safety back. And so, you can stare down a guy who's in one-on-one coverage, and that's what he did, and it worked out great for him. Now, it doesn't bode well for teams that actually, decide to put safeties back or like try to run a zone per se.
Everybody running that pass defense, no.
Yeah. But no, it was nice to see at the very least that when Petrus knew what he wanted to do, he was able to do it. And there aren't a whole lot, not every starting quarterback gets to say that. One of them starting in Lincoln, Nebraska as we speak. David, welcome back. Good to see you as always. Petrus says an INT, but ends up with a pass rating of 167. Yes, because it was only one interception. He had 2 TDs to go with it, as I recall. Yes, 2. And he was also throwing for about 12 yards per attempt, which is about twice as efficient as his previous games. So, the interception was bad. A whole lot of things went wrong on that play. And boy, it took a lot of wind out of Iowa's sails. But at the end of the day, when you're calculating passing rating, one pick is one pick, So it's very fortunate that the rest of Petrus's production, which sounds like the start of a tongue twister. It's very fortunate that really, really did a good job of outweighing the rest of it. And gosh, it's something that we just needed to see. Andrew, hello. Finally saw some vertical passing. Again, Colorado State basically said, we bet you're not going to throw it deep, so we're not even going to cover it. And about 90% of the time, that was a correct bet. And it just took somebody, on the Iowa coaching staff slapping everybody else upside the head and saying, no, they really don't think we're going to throw it deep. So, and, if Iowa had been up by double digits, they probably wouldn't have thrown those either. And we'd still all be wondering whether Petrus actually can throw those passes. But now at the very least, we know he can. We know that. John Miller, hello. Welcome. We got to get you on this show sometime. You're the seasoned pro. We're just writers who happen to look very, very handsome. And the pick was a complete pass. Yes, indeed. Sean White asks, can we get a running play that goes against the flow of the offensive line, my kingdom, for a counterplay? Boy, it sure seems like the field is ripe for one of those, because it really, over the first 4 games, it sure seems like opponents are able to do the same sort of mental math that Iowa does in terms of which side of the field has the numbers advantage, and they're able to flow to that and snuff out running plays before they have a chance to succeed. If you even going back to the Kent State game, the automatic touchdown play for Tyler Goodson, one of the reasons that worked so well was the fake to the fullback that everybody was keying on. All they had to do was flip to Goodson, and there was nobody on that side of the field. And that's because those cues were so religiously followed by Iowa's own offense that it surprised everybody that they actually went against that tendency just for one play, and they got a touchdown for it. Now, the more you go against a tendency, the less likely it is that you're going to be able to get huge gains out of it. But that just goes to show that there is quite a bit of predictability so far in Iowa's rushing attack. Mark, do you think that is sort of by design? The proverbial keeping the playbook closed, or is that just sort of something that you have to go with on account of an offensive line that's still learning?
I think it's probably a mix of both. I am quite certain that the Iowa staff did not want to opened that playbook too much in this game with bigger, better opponents up ahead and a team that Iowa, for the most part, could simply out-talent and outlast coming to Kinnick today. So I think there was quite a bit of that going on. But let's just play this relatively safe in the running game. Though the passing game, of course, did open up quite a bit today. I think that's probably the most likely explanation is just a desire to have something in the tank later on that no one has seen before and be able to pull that out against a much better opponent as opposed to having to lay everything on the table right now to get through this relatively easy guarantee game.
Yeah, it's almost sort of a shame that sweet counter or end around play that they ran for Tyrone Tracy for that tying touchdown. It's a bit of a bummer that they had to use that on Colorado State, right? Like it probably would have felt a whole lot more fun to bust that out in Madison, but alas. Is it Sean asks, is it safe to say that offensive line and play calling are what's holding this team back from being great? Well, I mean, look, I'll pump the brakes just a little bit because the team is, as of right now, top 5, undefeated, being talked about a lot as a potential national championship or a national playoff college football playoff team. So it depends on your definition of the word great, I guess, because this is already more rarefied air than we've gotten pretty much any September in the Kirk Ferentz era. I know. Oh no, who's a good dog? But that being said, we do want to see more consistency from the offensive line. Not only because, that's sort of a good indicator of how well the offense is going to perform as a whole. But two, this is the University of Iowa, and this is Kirk Ferentz, and those offensive lines, have always been some of the strongest units on the team. So, you hope it's going to improve, and the pessimist in me wants to say, yeah, it's going to improve in 2022 and 2023. I mean, the talent's there, and we're sort of fortunate that at this point in the season, the offensive line has done well enough. It's done well enough to get Iowa to 4-0. But boy, there's a whole Big Ten waiting in the wings, and gosh, if you have a struggling offensive line, good luck in this conference. Good luck. So, I think it really just depends on your definition of the word great. But at the very least, they're not losing games yet. So we'll take that. David asks, can we talk about the non-review of the most likely safety? Yeah, Mark, what did you think about that? I want to get your take on that first, because I have thoughts.
I think it really should have been reviewed. It really seemed like the sort of play that deserved a second look, because there was something a little bit hinky there, and I thought that, if anything's going to be reviewed in this age when everything seems to get reviewed, I'd like to know why that one wasn't.
Yeah, I agree. Especially for such a potentially, game-changing play, right? Like, it's one thing if we're not sure if he got a first down or not. Those sorts of plays slide by all the time, and frankly, I'm happy for it. I am generally team no review, or at the very least, like no slow-mo reviews. But on something as consequential as whether a play is a safety or not, so we're talking about both points and a change of possession. I think you should want a second look. And for the record, just based off of what we saw from the replays that they did show in between the two plays, I don't think it was going to get overturned. Right? I there's nothing that I saw that would have conclusively said, yeah, he didn't get out of the end zone. And to be fair, it's not like there was a whole lot of complaining going on from the Iowa players that it wasn't being reviewed. We didn't see the whole safety dance thing happening as much as we had seen on the Kent State safety. So, and maybe, the officials were just sort of reading the body language of everybody on the field. But again, if these mechanisms are going to be in place for review to begin with, why not use it right there? Yeah, I mean, I don't get that either. Again, I don't think it actually would have taken points, or I don't think it actually cost Iowa points, just because I don't think the review would have worked. But I think I agree with you, Mark. I think it definitely deserved the look. And if they come back and say, yeah, it stands, okay. You know what? All right, fine. They did enough. John says, starting to get a 2002 Ohio State vibe around this team. That is a great comparison. Petras doesn't need to be great. Offense doesn't need to be great. They just need to be average. Yeah. I'm sorry, but Craig Krenzel, one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time, sir. How dare you? How dare you? I'll throw out one other thing, and that's the other 2002 team, not Iowa's, but Miami's. Because Miami had Ken Dorsey at quarterback. And for as good as the skill position players made Ken Dorsey look, he was a 7th-round pick. He barely did anything in the NFL. And, if all Petras has to do is be as good as Ken Dorsey, okay. I think he can do that. I think he can be as good as Craig Krenzel. Right? If that's the ceiling that he needs to bump up against, it's possible. It's plausible. Now, the only difference is both of those teams had really, really good offensive lines. And Iowa still needs to get up there. Again, Linderbaum's great, and he's going to be a very rich man in the NFL. But, there's still a lot of work to be done. Yeah, and John was, of course, way ahead of me on the Krenzel comp. 58%, 12 TDs, 7 OTs, or 7 INTs. Yeah, great D, elite special teams. Caleb Shudak, Iowa hasn't had to depend on his leg very often, but that boy can kick. Torrey Taylor, we already know. And today is Cat Day, by the way, International Cat Day in the state of Iowa, which would make it not international. But yeah, I like those comps, both Ohio State and Miami. And again, those two teams were playing for the national championship. I still think Iowa would have beaten Ohio State that year. I know what USC did, and USC was frighteningly talented and really underperformed their way to the Orange Bowl. By the end of the season, I think USC was the best team in the country. But that all being said, when you look at the actual matchups between Iowa and Ohio State, at the very least, it would have been a very entertaining game. But gosh, you cannot look me in the eye and tell me that 2002 Iowa would have gotten beaten by Krenzel and Maurice Claret. Nothing against them, but the Iowa team had firepower.
That really had a lot of powerful offensive playmakers.
Yes,
those
everywhere on the field.
The hallmark of his teams, but that team was loaded.
Yes. All right. So yeah, to finish John's thoughts here, offense that can develop towards average, top 5 D, top 5 special teams. No, you're not nuts. I mean, I think that is precisely the formula that we're seeing, and it's sort of the culmination of 22 years of Kirk Ferentz's coaching philosophies. Obviously, teams are going to, the team's identity is going to change year over year. 2002 didn't look like 2004, which didn't look like 2008, which didn't look like 2009 all that much. But in 2015 again, the one nice thing about Ferentz teams is their identities sort of shift based on what the skills are that the players get, or what they bring to the table. If you tried to put Ricky Stanzi at quarterback in that 2002 team, it wouldn't have worked that well, or not necessarily as well as it did. It still kind of would have worked, right? But that was legendary because of what Banks did, and they really geared the offense toward it. So it's good to see that. And yes, that all being said, I mean, we've been griping and crowing here for almost half an hour, but a nice little reminder here. It's been so long that people forgot what losing is like. I mean, look, Iowa is on a 10-game winning streak, and mostly against some really, really good opponents, the last two notwithstanding. And both of those teams really gave Iowa their best shot, right? They came into town with upsets on their mind and really sold out for it, and they both lost by double digits. So, it's nice to be in this position. It's nice to see Iowa in a sort of a prominent place nationally. I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know if they're still going to be in the top 5 in 24 hours or so, but they are still going to be in the top 10. And, just look at Clemson, because they're not going to be in the top 10 anymore. Look at A&M, who just got beaten by Arkansas. Auburn barely beat Georgia State. Like, not even Georgia Southern, Georgia State. That's the bad that's the bad one of the two recent additions to FBS. And our little brothers over there in Ames, they're not going to be ranked anymore. And they were the dark horse national champions. So, it's nice to be in this position, and sometimes we just gotta sort of remind ourselves that a win is a win. And you like them to look good, but they don't have to. Just keep stacking wins and let everything else take care of itself. And it's sort of a philosophy for life, really. Stack your W's, take care of your side of the street, and things are going to be good. Offense isn't even close to average. Well, I bet it is close to average. It depends on what what you're averaging, right? There's
I can tell you that much. But
yeah.
We'd like to see more big plays. We'd like to see more sustained drives. We saw some quick drives today that really moved the ball well, and when they needed points, they got them. So that was a wonderful. But yeah, we can see the problems. We've seen the problems since week 1.
Yeah. And the nice thing is, if we can see the problems, the coaches can see the problems, and it's their jobs to fix those, address those, however you want to, go about it. Call plays against the weaknesses. But if it's obvious to us, it's obvious to them. And so if we keep seeing them, it really might be something that isn't, sort of a quick fix. And that's, as a wise man, as a famous man, as a rich man once said, that's football. Yeah. And yes, going back to 2002, Iowa's kryptonite was passing defense. OSU couldn't exploit that. Hey, we're talking about a team that put up 13 points against Purdue. Those Buckeyes. They had the one long pass, and that was enough to win. So I guess that's what that's. But yes, I agree. Especially for an Iowa team that could put up reliably 20 to 30 points against just about anybody. Again, Orange Bowl was what it was, but by and large, that was a frighteningly competent offense. And probably spoiled us a little bit. It got us thinking, oh yeah, we got 40 points a game coming under Farron's. Life is going to be good. That course has been corrected just a skosh, but yeah. All right, it is about 8 o'clock on Saturday evening. We are here at the Iowa Sports Review, celebrating 4-0, celebrating a 24-14 victory. If you have just come in recently, my name is Adam Jacobi of GoIowaAwesome.com. I'm joined by Mark Hasty, my friend, my colleague, and an internet legend, really, also of GoIowaAwesome.com. And we are here to take your thoughts, your takes, your questions, everything that you thought about that game that definitely happened. It took place and it was a victory. So, head on over to the chat on YouTube. Fire away. That's what we're here for. Joe, always great to see you, my man. The relentless decline of QB play since he was here is unsettling. Again, dicey because like CJ Beathard was not that long ago. Say what you will about Jake Rudock, but he went to the NFL. He did good things for Michigan. So at the very least, I think the QB position is in a better place than it was under Greg Davis, when you would see things like James Vandenberg passes 40 times for 100 yards. And again, that's not on Vandenberg, because we saw what he did with Ken O'Keefe. If the quarterback play was really, really in decline, there would be a whole lot more games where Iowa's QBs had thrown them out of game, where there's pick sixes flying, there's fumbles, there's interceptions. Say what you will about how risk-averse Kirk Ferentz is, but it really is damaging to throw an interception. Gosh, look at what happened this week. And, at the very least, Iowa's quarterbacks keep the ball moving in the right direction most of the time. Do I wish they were more productive? Yes. I think every Iowa fan you ask is going to say yes. But everything I've heard from, coming out of Iowa City is that the people in charge are happy with where Petrus is at. And, when he was asked to make those big productive throws today, by and large, he did. He wasn't perfect, but Colorado State dared him to throw those passes, and he did, and they worked. They worked well enough to get Iowa out of that deficit, score the last 17 points of the game, and come away with a victory that really could have been even bigger. They didn't cover the spread. I'm not gonna tell you, well, it was secretly a blowout. No, but they won by 10 points, and they ended the game inside Colorado State's 10-yard line. All right, so and it. Really, the interception wasn't solely on Petrus. It wasn't a good throw, and it wasn't a good read, and he's going to get a lot of guff from the coaches for that, rightfully so. But other than that, I'm not really sure what the second biggest mistake that he made today was. Whatever it was, I don't think it was that big. Mark, am I telling tales out of school here, or
No. It was actually a really very clean game, and I think we're kind of onto something about feeling a little bit spoiled here, because we've had it really good for a really long time, and when we make our comps, we are comparing ourselves to programs that are probably not exactly at Iowa's level and not operating on Iowa's philosophy. No, we're not as great as Alabama. We don't have that kind of talent because we don't stock up on 5 stars at every position every year. But we've won 10 in a row. It's 26 consecutive games holding an opponent to 24 points or fewer. That is the best in the nation. You literally can get better than that. What do you want?
Ball hawk you, baby. This is it. Yeah, this is what it looks like. So, I think at the end of the day, It would be nice to have an offense that can, rip off 50 points without breaking a sweat. But the number of teams that it can actually do that in the nation is vanishingly thin.
Right.
And gosh, even Ohio State's been having a few problems recently. So, I mean, I think that despite the nerve-wracking tone of this game, especially for the first half, and it was not a good half of football. Despite all of that, Iowa's in a pretty good place, especially for being Iowa. And
I think we need to give a little credit as well to Colorado State. I know they're not a great team, but Steve Adazio and John Budmeyer, their offensive coordinator, who used to play for Wisconsin, they called an excellent game in the first half. And Iowa managed
guys being dudes, baby.
I know.
This is the more I look at it now that Adazio shaved his weirdo goatee. This is a bad drawing. I normally thought it was good, but it's actually bad. Anyway, I'm gonna miss him though. I'm really gonna miss this guy, and I don't know what Mike Loxley looks like off the top of my head, so I'm not even sure that I can. This might be a one and done for the dry erase coach era. But yeah, the Andrew says that's one of the best performances he's seen from Petras. It's sort of up there. He had some good games in the last half of 2020. Don't get me wrong, but in terms of making sure that Iowa wasn't actively imploding, aside from that interception, he did what he was supposed to. And again, whenever Colorado State dared him to throw that long ball, he was able to do it successfully. Now, one thing that I did notice though, and doesn't really get talked about, I thought on a few of those completions he was throwing to the wrong receiver. Especially the ones that were, completions that were short of the sticks. There was one to Laporta that he ended up bobbling, and that one was not a good throw. But it was also not a good throw, not only because it was short, not only because it was too high, but also because Reganey was breaking open on an out route. And yeah, that's a tougher throw to make, but Reganey was breaking wide open. And, pass the first down.
I think it's valid to say that it sure looks like Petras is not always following his progressions the way he ought to. Mm-hmm. He's checking down maybe a little too quickly sometimes when there's something developing down the field. Some of that is because the offensive line hasn't been great, and he's trying not to get sacked, which, as we all know, he's not always succeeding at. But yeah, I think those are perfectly valid criticisms of Spencer Petras so far.
Yeah. And so, yeah, part of that is something that you would expect the coaches to work on with him. And again, we're talking about a guy in his second year of starting at quarterback. He does have time at the very least to improve. And whether he does or doesn't is, I guess, sort of up to him. But Ken O'Keefe, say what you will about Ken O'Keefe, quarterbacks do improve under him, generally speaking. I mean, gosh, Brad Banks from 2001 to 2002 was night and day. But yeah,
if you had told me in 2001, I had season tickets that year. If you had told me in 2001 that Brad Banks was going to be the Heisman Trophy runner-up the next year, I would not have believed you.
Oh gosh, no, not even close. I would have been like, well, what, in D3? No, that's D3 is not fair. He never looked like a D3 player, but and I guess they don't have Heismans in D3, but yeah, it certainly seemed like he wasn't going to. It looked like he was probably going to end up better than Kyle McCann, but I mean, that's something that most starting quarterbacks ought to, at the very least, vie for, right? Like, you should aspire to be better than Kyle McCann. But no, he did not look like even a future All Big Ten quarterback. He looked like a guy who was productive, and good for him for that. But he made big strides. Part of that was the offensive line, a big part of that, I would say. Part of that was the skill position players, and part of that was just the coaches putting together an offense that really did a lot to showcase what Banks could do, and didn't ask him to do things that he wasn't as capable of doing. I remember reading that they basically cut the field in half for him, and that's not a knock on Banks's field reading ability, but it is a reflection of the fact that that was his first year starting at the at a Power 5 team or whatever it was a big step up in competition for him, and competition that was only in spots in 2001. So you would expect to see some improvement from the team, from the offense, hopefully, fingers crossed. One thing that our viewers might have noticed here, especially if you were not on the stream on Wednesday, but in the corner we have a logo for Count the Kicks, and that is an organization that is supporting Iowa punter Tory Taylor. So there's a shirt at Ray Gun Shirts, who make really, really dynamite designs, and with that iconic block font. If you've seen shirts with big text on them anywhere in the state of Iowa, odds are it came from Ray Gun, right? And so they did a punting is winning shirt with a with the shape of Australia, with the outline of that on the front, and on the back it says Taylor 9, and it's an officially endorsed shirt for Tory Taylor. It's all being above board licensed. Thank you to NIL rules. But one thing that Taylor mentioned on social media when the shirt came out was that all the proceeds were going to Count the Kicks. And Count the Kicks is an evidence-based organization that provides educational materials to healthcare organizations and expectant mothers to help prevent stillbirths. And the fact that they're able to get that partnership together with Iowa football and with Tory really makes me feel good as a Hawkeye fan, as a college football fan, and just a person, So we've got that. We've got the logo there on the screen. There's going to be links to everything that they do in the description of today's video. So go ahead and mouse down there, click that. Make a donation if you can. That would be great to see. And hopefully we can have more and more healthy births here in the state of Iowa and in the United States. And I don't think anybody could be opposed to that. So make sure and check that all out when you have the opportunity. So thank you for that. Let's see. There was a, as Andrew says, there's a third down throw to Goodson. Got creamed immediately. The fact that you can throw short of the sticks on 3rd and 3, I mean, honestly, I was a little bit impressed. Tracy was wide open. I don't remember seeing where Tracy was, and honestly, from the TV broadcast, it's sort of hard to notice whether or not they're open. But yeah, that was a throw that did not have a great chance of succeeding. Everybody, especially at that point in the game, and with how the Iowa offense was really featuring Goodson to try to get unstuck, everybody in the stadium knew that as soon as he went out for that swing route, that the ball was going to him. 3rd and 3 or not, you need to make a more competitive passing decision than that. And it wouldn't surprise me if Tracy was open, because again, the defense was really, really selling out to crash the line of scrimmage. And so I will take your word for it that Tracy was open. And again, I think that's something that really needs to be looked at, because as another person in the chat said, like, this is a really generational performance that we're seeing from the defense. And you would hate to see situations like, I'm trying to blank, was it 2018 where they had a couple of those games where they didn't even cross double digits, and that was a great defense too. So Joe said that this might be the best defensive performance we've seen from a Kirk Ferentz team, and that is saying a lot. So, yeah, you hope it doesn't get to the point where Iowa's offense sort of takes them out of the game. And, so far it hasn't, but it really seems like they're walking a fine line here. Would you agree?
I do. Yeah. This team is reminding me of, I'm going to play the old guy card here, reminding me of Jackie Sherrill's Mississippi State teams and Frank Beamer's Virginia Tech teams. Except for the Michael Vick years, Virginia Tech was never anything all that exciting on offense. And Mississippi State, I mean, they might only score 6 points a game, but it would have been enough because their defense was just that good. That was the era of Porkchop Womack and Floyd Smoot and a lot of really good guys who came through Mississippi State and really just tore it up.
Well, I know that we're not discounting the performance of Jim Druckenmiller, who was a first-round pick in the NFL, mind you. But, yeah, I mean, Druckenmiller's sort of the exception that proves the rule, right? You can remember Michael Vick. You can remember Druck. Yeah.
Name one other Virginia Tech offensive player ever.
Darn it. Yeah. David says that Petrus is really staring down single receivers. Yeah, he does. And again, you can get away with that when teams are playing cover zero and it's just man-to-man, one-on-one all the way. Stare away, because there's nobody to look off to begin with. And it really does seem like Petrus gets more juice on his throws, gets them exactly where they need to be. I mean, and he can make some really, really good throws. But usually if there's a progression that's happening prior to that, they're not quite as good. They're, it seems like he's starting to throw to receivers before he really locks onto them. And that is an improvement that he needs to make if, he wants to throw footballs for a living. But that being said, if that's the only improvement that he needs to make, he's pretty close. He's pretty close because he's got just about anything else that you would want from him. He is also kind of slow, but again, as if he really wants to throw footballs for a living, whether he can run a 4.6 or not doesn't actually matter all that much. I'm not going to. I was about to say something controversial, but I don't think we need to do that on a Saturday evening when everyone's just trying to have a good time. Looking ahead to next week, Maryland just Ray here, welcome Ray, says Maryland looks too quick for Iowa. They made easy work out of Kent State, and Tunga Vailoa, the younger, that boy can throw the rock. And say what you will about Maryland, but they're also undefeated. They've got some good skill position players. Before the season, I circled that trip to Maryland, that Friday night under the lights, as a cause for concern. And honestly, even though Iowa is, probably going to be number 6 going into that game, I'm as worried as I've ever been. Mark, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you on your fear factor for Maryland, especially after seeing the results from today for both of those teams?
I'm about at a 9 because I think Mike Loxley is a very aggressive coach. He's going to look at the game film from today. He's going to see the success Colorado State had in the first half. He's going to look at that and say, our personnel are better. Our quarterback is a much better thrower than Colorado State had. We've got better receivers. We have a much more credible running game. I think he's going to try that. He's going to try the things that appeared to work against Iowa's defense in the first half. Because for as good as his defense is, that was probably one of the, with this season, what is the first performance? But that was probably the weakest first half they played the entire season.
Yeah. And we're speaking relatively here,
right?
Because, but yeah, they definitely looked at the very least mortal. They didn't score any points. Like what the heck? We can gripe about the non-safety call, but they came pretty close though. They came pretty close. But yeah, Colorado State sustained drives, and most alarmingly, they kept sustaining those drives on 3rd and long, which was very surprising. And
third down performance in both directions for Iowa today was not good.
Yeah,
it was pretty bad.
Yeah, and in a way, it's almost sort of fortunate that they were playing Colorado State because there's a whole lot of teams on Iowa's schedule, especially in the next 8 games, where if Iowa plays like that again, they're bringing an L home, and all of a sudden the conversation about where the season is going to go that takes a turn. So hopefully this was a teaching opportunity, as they say, and hopefully this is the door that they need to walk through to get a whole lot of things shaped up. I really liked what I saw once again out of the linebackers. I thought Campbell, obviously, I think, what did he end up with? 18 tackles, did we see? It might as well have been 25, though. He was all over the place. It was once again, it sort of looked like a situation where Colorado State said, well, we'll make that 31 guy beat us. Campbell said, okay. But yeah, I do hope that they get a whole lot of things about their 3rd down pass coverage sorted out. Jack Kerner, and I hesitate to say anything bad about Des Moines kids, but Kerner looked out of position on more than a couple opportunities. And that wasn't the first game this season where I found myself thinking that. I know that he has earned the starting role and all of that, but gosh, it really doesn't seem like we see him. He did make one very good play in coverage against the was it McBride was their tight end?
Yeah, McBride.
Yeah.
There's two McBride on that team.
Yes, that's which is too many for me. Especially when neither of them are Danny. But that being said, he's not really the disruptive playmaker guy that you would think would be at free safety on such a playmaking defense like this. He's sometimes, I thought in the Iowa State game in particular, he was out of position on more than a few plays. And for a guy or for a prevent defense, which is when ISU was usually making their drives, and in fact, the only situations in which ISU could drive the ball. But even on those plays, it seemed like, yes, he was keeping guys in front of him, or, he was keeping the action in front of him, but then the action would be able to run past him. So there's sort of a limited amount of usefulness for keep it in front of you if you're not actually going to make the play on top of that. So I think if there was anything close to a weak link on the Iowa defense, I think it starts at free safety. Have you seen anything else sort of concerning about the defense at the very least from a personnel standpoint yet?
Not beyond what you've mentioned. Kerner really needs to step it up and get involved. Jacobs was not as much of a factor today as I would have hoped for on that defense. Mm-hmm. And maybe it was just a case of Colorado State game plan to avoid him. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that on some occasions he was tasked with covering McBride, which again is not really putting anybody on that defense in a position to succeed, because he was a genuinely talented tight end, and he's going to make some money in the NFL. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I thought the announcing team was a little bit too harsh on the play where McBride converted that catch down to the 3-yard line or whatever, and they said, "Oh, it's a mismatch. You don't put a bigger linebacker type." No, Jacobs was fast enough. That was just a good play by a really, really talented player. But yeah, in terms of the raw production, yeah, I thought that there was something a little bit to be desired there still. So I would agree with that. But at the very least, if he's the third best linebacker on the team, great. I think there are so many teams in America that would love to have the problem of figuring out whether or not they could use Justin Jacobs. He's legit. Oh, yeah. Do we have something interesting happening in Norman, Oklahoma here? Because backup quarterbacks in the stadium, OAU is having issues. Let's see here. Oh dear. It's West Virginia 10, Oklahoma 7 at the half. Spencer Rattler, who I've never been high on for the record. 73 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 rushes for no yards. It's
interesting. Brand like that.
The dealership's going to announce that he only gets 1 car from now on. But yeah, it's really easy to fall in love with a backup quarterback, especially when it's sort of a hype thing, and we got a lot of that during the off season with Padilla, and it's not Padilla's fault or anything like that, and I don't think that is something that players are trying to affect. I think the players genuinely appreciate Petrus as their starter, their captain, and all of that, but since Petrus isn't throwing for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns a game, and there was that one report by Scott Docterman, who again is a consummate professional, and if somebody says this sort of thing, yeah, you should report it. But there was that offseason report that said Padilla makes throws that are, quote, jaw-dropping, and gosh, whenever you feed a fan base something like that, they're going to decide that this guy is the actual best quarterback, and the coaches don't know a darn thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's easy to fall in love with the idea of a backup quarterback, but you also have to sort of realize that they're probably backups for a reason. Probably. I mean, I know that, backups have sort of a special history in Iowa football, with Stanzi winning the job, Beathard winning the job, the ways that they did in the middle of the season. I don't think that the reason that Iowa's passing offense is so... what's a kind word here? Is the way that it is. I don't think that is because of limitations that Petrus has and Padilla doesn't have. Yes, Iowa's offense is straight out of the 1920s. No, that's not fair. That's not quite fair. The 1920s had fun T formations. But yeah, at the end of the day, Petrus is running the offense that Kirk Ferentz wants, and he's not doing an objectively bad job of it. Yeah, that the interception was bad. Yeah, I take issue with a few of those throws, but at the end of the day, there's no reason for us to believe that changing the quarterback is going to make that offense more productive. There's no reason for us to believe that. And there's nobody suggesting that.
If Kirk Ferentz wanted this kind of offense, we would have seen it in the last 22 seasons.
Yeah, yeah.
It's clear by now this is just not his priority.
Yeah, exactly. All the hype was for Deuce. Oh, buddy, keep waiting. Sorry. I don't want to be rude, Joe, but if that's the case, you might want to look into medically induced comas for the next 24 months or so. It's and that's nothing against Deuce Hogan, don't get me wrong, but he's brand new in the program, or at the very least, this is what his redshirt freshman year. Again, like, it's easy to fall in love with the guy who says all the right things on social media and has that sort of magnetic personality, but at the end of the day, is Deuce better at running the offense that Kirk Ferentz wants? As you said, Mark, is he better at that than Petrus? And I haven't heard any reason that suggests that he is. So, yeah. So that's where we're at with that. Boy, we have been on for an hour already, Mark. That is downright marathon work from you. So I'll let you get back to being a dog dad, and I'll try to keep my cat's hindquarters from making a return to the internet. At the very least, like, is there like an OnlyFans but for cats?
I don't know. We know if there is.
Yeah. Only pets. We'll set up an Only Pets for. So thank you all for joining us today. This beautiful Saturday evening. Hope you all have enjoyed your day, enjoyed the weather. Hope you're all cooking out and all those good things. 4-0. There's and gosh, if there's anything that we could have learned from all the action today, it's that a win's a win, and you take them where you can get them. I think we all wanted a less competitive game than that, but hey, you can't argue with results. And so thank you all for joining us. If you enjoyed what you saw today, go ahead and click like and subscribe there on the page. That helps us grow this community and get fans just like you in here with us, and makes YouTube acknowledge and respect us even more. Because at the end of the day, this is all about you, the community, giving you guys a place to sound off and share your thoughts. And we're really, really happy every time we see each and every one of you join us. So with that, my name is Adam Jacobi, GoIowaAwesome.com, joined by the legend himself, Mark Hasty, also GoIowaAwesome.com. Be sure to read us whenever you can. And I believe that's all I've got. So with that, go Iowa Awesome, go Hawkeyes. Good night.
Good night.